Yo, what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder. And today, I wanted to talk about the #1 player in the game, Nephisto, sitting at 1.28 billion power, has been the strongest player in the game for a number of months. If we just go to our players sheet for our master on top stats, which I'll show you now, he's been... Right, last time we did the stats was 11-7. I'll be doing this shortly, probably in the next couple of days to start again. If you look at Nephisto for where he's been, let's go, okay, maybe with the exception of Kyle, maybe doing one there, right, going back to December of last year. Look at where he really started, like, coming on board and making a name for himself, which was, I think, right here, May 11th, right, of 2023. And he's owned the top spot since then, with the exception of, I believe, 2 or 3 months, but that just could have been right during the months that I pulled the data from. And so, what has happened? Well, in short, he's quit. He's not playing anymore. He's moved on. Where and why? We'll get to that in a moment. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us some, because it helps out a lot. Nephisto has, at least, again, as of 2.5 months ago, from what he had told me, has stopped spending. And he has what feels like a lot to say on the subject whenever I am able to find a moment with him. It appears as though he's lost interest for any number of reasons, that especially ones that we've been hearing lately. If you're watching or have watched the State of the Game questionnaire that I did, where we interviewed, I believe, 119 leaders out of the top, 119 kingdom leaders out of the top 170 kingdoms in the game at the time when we did that survey, along with the dev feedback, number 13, I believe, that we got, and even the Hall of Kings Q&A #1 that we recently received on the official Discord for the game. There's challenges. There are pain points for the community, and it feels as though some of those, as of recently, are starting to be addressed based on the answers that we got from the COD team and devs. In probably most importantly, that big Q&A number 13, where they really addressed a lot. We're still waiting for patch notes as of today, but hopefully we'll get them a little bit later. Let's go into some screenshots real quick. So this one was from, I believe this was, someone had sent this to me from the war. We showed this off before, but this one states, this is from Strange, where she says, we had a good talk where I also let him know Nef's account will be staying. As some of you noticed, he basically moved on from this game to another, right? Kind of indicating that he's not playing anymore. And, well, where did he move? Well, he moved over to Age of Empires Mobile. This is something that he had mentioned to me pretty early on when I think he was testing it out. I think he's over in Kingdom 41, I believe. And it's one of those 40-41 around there. And I think he already has an account over 100,000, or if it's over 100 million, I think, or over 125, something like that. I haven't checked in a few weeks, at least from what I had last seen, so it probably is bigger by this time if needed. But yeah, he's over there playing that. And what's interesting to me is, Nef played Rock for a while, had a big account there. He stops playing, comes over to CoD Dragons, finds COD stimulating, engaging, enjoyable, fun, something new, a new challenge. Plays that for a while. Then stops and goes on. Now, from what a few people have told me, is that this is just kind of, and I want to point out, I don't see anything wrong with this. Just some people like a new challenge, and some have explained to me that that's something that they've noticed with Nef, is that he'll play something until he just doesn't enjoy it anymore, or it's not his cup of tea. And to be honest, I think that's pretty standard. That's the same way that I would like to believe a lot of us feel when we're getting into something new, is that it's only enjoyable until it isn't. And so, it's funny because, I did put out some content for AOEM, and I really would love to dive a little bit more into it just to kind of see what the opportunity or the potential might be. But at the same time, you know, and I've said this before publicly, I look at AOEM and I just think to myself, it's just a mid kingdom builder. There's just nothing incredibly unique about it that would be gravitating for people to go and play. It's just very basic and very much a generalized kingdom builder, not only in its structure, its features, and its appearance. I just don't really think it adds anything to the kind of moving the needle of the frontier on where the genre is as a whole. And on top of which, you know, there's no ranged combat. So, like, for me, there's no true ranged PvP. And even if a game doesn't necessarily have true ranged PvP like Call of Dragons does, and I think one or two other games have this as well, my feeling is that you just have to be excelling in so many other areas in a kingdom builder competitively for me to want to take interest in going to play it and or potentially covering content, but really more so playing. And it just doesn't have that. There are some unique things that I think it does have, but just not enough to where it's like really moving the needle for me personally. And I know a number of people that watch my content, especially those that came over with me from Rock to Infinity Kingdom and then Infinity Kingdom, you know, to Call of Dragons, because they really wanted that competitive challenge. And I feel like at least my base has a good understanding of the types of games within the genre that I enjoy doing, and they also enjoy playing as well. With that in mind, right, let's look at what I think is probably another point here that I want to bring up. So this is something that was said from when we covered the Noir situation. And I just wanted to highlight one point here, not to necessarily revisit everything. But here we see one, and this is something that Guns had even said as well on one of his streams that we touched on in a previous video, where this player said, having to fight against more T5 or high-tech players, so harder for those to enjoy by having a better account from spending more. And I think this is pretty indicative of, again, do you want to say this is how, this is how Neph or whomever feels about the game? Is this a way that some spenders feel? I'm sure, without a doubt, that I think some spenders feel that way when it comes to trying to always have their account in a position where they'll always be ahead, i.e. or therefore always having a constant advantage, whether that be in any situation, KVK related, or even Home Kingdom for PvE kind of events, or being able to win certain events. And I think to myself, like, what do people really think here? If you're a spender, what side of that fence do you really fall on? Is it you're spending just because you want to get to endgame, so that way you can just already be there and you can focus on other things, but you're excited for when others finally reach endgame to be able to compete with you? And is that further stimulating? Do you like that kind of where it's now coming down to more true skill? Or is it, no, you kind of just want to button smash from spending more and just always kind of come out with W's, right? Is it, no, you're spending because you always want to stay ahead and that's how you view spending in these particular games? Is it you spending because you just want to maintain at the highest level and nothing else kind of really matters? I ask this because my view on it, and whether or not this might be controversial or a hot take, I personally don't think it is, and I've said this publicly a number of times. My view on spending is that you are spending to get to endgame. You are not spending to always stay ahead. Obviously with some exceptions. One of those exceptions would be, you know, clearly you're going to be able to train a lot more troops than someone who is not spending, right? That's a given. You're going to be able to most likely max out new heroes, artifacts, war pets, etc. when they come out before others. And that's not necessarily really what we're aiming at. It's really more about you spending just to get to endgame, but you also understand that over a period of time, more players will reach T5. They'll have multiple T5 units. They'll hopefully reach max VIP. They'll hopefully have at least, if you want to say meta or popular or whatever endgame legendary composition marches that they need to, whether that ends up being on the hero side, artifact, or war pet side, they're eventually able to get to where they can have ideal marches that can compete, even if they don't have the total amount of heroes and available marches and available artifacts and available war pets as someone who spends. They can at least go toe-to-toe with, up to their 5 marches, right, once they get endgame. And that's really more of where I come from. That's how I view it, is that it shouldn't be something where the constant is I'm spending because I always want to stay ahead. It's spending because I want to get to endgame faster. And then, again, there are some aspects of staying ahead, right? It's not like someone who is a low spend or free to play, you're going to be able to max out a hero, an artifact, a war pet the moment they come out or shortly after they come out. I think that's a given. But it is clear, and it is interesting when you think about this too as well, for the amount of time that they have in between releasing heroes, war pets, new artifacts, where you could make an argument that that amount of time kind of gives people more time to catch up. Because if you're releasing new material, new PvP content on longer intervals, it gives the free-to-play low spend more time to catch up compared to if you're releasing them every month. And so I think because of that, and again, this is my take, I personally think it's good. And I said this in the very beginning when they were releasing new heroes, is I really loved the pace. Because to me, it felt like they were not rushing, coming out. Now, again, there's a big difference between waiting too long, I feel, and then obviously coming out too early. I actually find that they're in this kind of happy medium place, or maybe have been for a number of releases, even if it's not all of new hero, war pet, artifact releases, to where this kind of almost plays into a little bit more of that catch-up mechanic that you may have heard or we have mentioned a couple times. And because of that, it only further gives free-to-play and low spend a little bit more. And so to play into that comment, to that quote, on having to fight more T5s, it becomes harder, it's less fun. I mean, I'll go out and say, like, yeah, does it suck to hear that from people who spend? Sure, me personally. I don't think any of those people are bad. It's just, I guess it's more disappointing in the sense of that, you have people who, again, if that is their only way of thinking, where it's, I'm just going to spend because I always want to stay ahead. And if I can't always stay ahead, then I'm not going to play anymore. That's really what I'm talking about. Like, if that is your only singular thought and mindset and approach and perspective, then yeah, to me, that's disappointing. Obviously, I'd love to know what you guys think on that, right? If you agree, you disagree. And then what I will say is, one of the quotes that I had heard from Nev was him just basically telling me he's done with the game, right? Mentioning, like I said before, he stopped spending in October, estimated, of 2024, right? So 2.5 months ago. And then we get to, okay, well, what does this kind of impact have on the game? Does it really mean anything that the number one player at the moment has quit and they stopped? I don't know, personally, I think it mostly doesn't. And I say that because you're always going to have people that come into a game, such as a kingdom builder, and spend. Even if the OGs are kind of more doing maintenance spending versus the new players that are coming in are doing more kind of bulk or progression spending, larger amounts, because they're trying to get to endgame, they're trying to get all the heroes, right? They're basically trying to fill an account out. Again, as long as the game is good, I feel, generally speaking, people will play. However, I do think it's important to cover things historically and to talk about reasons on why people maybe leave and or why people get into a game. As a lot of times, especially if it's done right, you can lend what I feel is an educational ear and feedback. And we've done this before. We've done exit interviews with a number of people, right? We did exit interview, I think, with Meower. We did one with Bob. We did one with, one or two other people that I'm probably just forgetting right now. And I have to go get her plate. And so this is something that I just find, at least for me, is enjoyable. Like, I love learning and being able to talk to people on, why did they exit? Why did they stop? And then what can we learn from it? So anyways, that's pretty much it for me on everything I got for you today. wanted just to share some of my thoughts and talk about this for a little bit. So I'd love to know what you think, right? Is this something? Is it not something? And then kind of what side of the fence do you land on when it comes to the spending mentality and how it is for why some spenders may quit and why some keep playing? Let me know in the comments down below. That's going to do it for me. As always, until next time, we'll catch you later.